If you are eating at different restaurants every time you go out to eat, of course, that's meeting your need for novelty while also meeting your need for predictability. Now, the third type of dialectical tension that we're going to talk about is openness versus privacy. Of course, human beings have a need to be understood. If you've ever been around somebody who just doesn't get you, you know how frustrating that is. So we need to be understood, but sometimes in order to get that understanding, we have to share things about ourselves that are private and personal and that we might rather not share. So sometimes we have to make a choice. Am I willing to open myself up and share things that are private and personal in order to be understood? Or am I willing to risk being misunderstood in order to keep those private things private? That's the dialectical tension that arises between openness and privacy. So the good news is we do have ways of dealing with the dialectical tensions that we experience. That's our next list here, strategies for managing dialectical tension. First one is disorientation. So disorientation, then selection, alternation, moderation, reaffirmation, and reframing. Reframing's not in the book, but it's interesting, so I wanted to talk about it. They're in order from least healthy, least effective to more healthy and more effective techniques. So the first one, disorientation, is basically the kiddo standing in the doorway having a meltdown because they can't decide whether to go outside or stay inside. Disorientation is where you just freak out when you experience the two different needs pulling you in different directions. You don't know how to deal with it, so you freeze up like a deer in the headlights, or maybe you lash out. Obviously, not the most effective way to deal with the tension. So the next way of dealing with tension is selection. This one's a little bit healthier. It's a little bit more effective. It's where you are purposely choosing one of the needs over the other. So you say, for example, I am willing to share things that I need to share in order to be understood. My need for openness is greater than my need for privacy, so I choose openness and I sacrifice privacy. Now, this one's still not fabulous because it means that you are sacrificing one of your needs. You may be sacrificing predictability in order to have things be totally new and exciting all the time, but you still kind of probably miss that predictability a little bit. Or you might choose openness over privacy, or privacy versus openness, and that means you're going to sacrifice being understood. So selection is certainly better than disorientation, but it's still not great. Alternation is a little bit better. Alternation is where you meet one need for a while and then you switch and you meet the other need. So you are literally alternating. It's pretty common for example, when you're a little kid, you live at home, you're meeting your need for connection. As you get a little bit older, you become a teenager, you start to experience more of a need for autonomy, to be in charge of your own life. Eventually, you go off to college, you have your own household, right? You maybe live alone, and that's your need for autonomy. But then you might want to, settle down with your sweetie and maybe have a family, and then you're going to have your need for connection met. You don't have as much autonomy, but you have more connection. Then maybe your kids go off to college and you have a little bit more autonomy. So as we go through life, we alternate between those different needs. The next one is moderation. Moderation is compromise. It's where you meet one need, you meet both needs sort of, basically. So, for example, imagine that I want to go to Europe. I want to quit my job. I want to go backpacking across Europe for a year, but I have a family and I'm their sole support, and I can't very well just quit my job and leave my family back here while I go gallivanting around Europe for a year. If I do that, I will totally sacrifice my connection to my family. That connection will be gone. So I could, though, save up and take my family on a vacation to Europe with me. Now, I won't be experiencing Europe exactly the same way I would have if I were on my own, but at the same time, I'm not totally sacrificing my connection to my family. So it's compromise. That's moderation. The next one is reaffirmation. Reaffirmation is basically just saying this is normal, okay? Don't freak out over the fact that you're being pulled in different directions by different needs. Human beings are complicated creatures, and it's normal to feel pulled in different directions by mutually exclusive needs. The last one is reframing. Reframing, it's a step beyond reaffirmation. Reframing is where not only do you acknowledge that this is normal, but you welcome it. You see the needs as being two halves of a whole, all right? So for example, you can welcome your connection to others because you also have some autonomy. So they're not in conflict with each